Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. If you are new, thank you so much for watching. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any new videos. So today I'm going to be doing my birth story video. I know a lot of people have wanted to see this. At first, when I first had him, I started like typing out on my Instagram. I'll put my Instagram right here, but I started typing out like what the birth story was and it was just so long, so I just deleted it and I was like, whatever, I'm making a video. It's taken me a little bit to get it up because my gosh, props to moms with newborns that put out videos every day. I did not realize how hard it would be. He is 7.5 weeks now. He was like a little angel baby for like the first 5 weeks, and the last 2 weeks have been rough. And the doctor kind of warned us that like around 5 weeks they go through like a mental growth spurt, and it's been a lot. So anyways, I really want to get this video up. James is off, so he's watching William, and a lot happened, let me tell you. In my birth story, I have a lot. I wrote down everything, so if you see me looking down throughout the video, I literally had to make notes because I didn't want to forget anything. A lot happened. For me, it was really traumatic. It was a really traumatic week in the hospital, and you might watch this and be like, oh, like it's not that bad, my friend went through this, or I went through that, or whatever. But for me personally, and being a first-time mom, this was like so traumatic to me. I don't even want more kids after this. All my mom and my mother-in-law are like, oh, you'll forget, like you'll want more kids, trust us. But you guys, I honestly, when I was pregnant, I was like, I want 3 or 4 babies. Excuse me, I want to like get pregnant when William's a year old and like have them close together, because me and my siblings were like 6 years apart, so I wanted them a little bit closer. But I honestly, like all the time now, I'm like, I think he could be an only child. Like I could not imagine having another baby and like willingly going through this again. So let's just get on into it. So I had William on August 2nd, and I was 36 weeks and 2 days along, so he did come early. So just like a little backstory though, when I was 32 weeks pregnant, they did a growth ultrasound, because when I was born at around 35 weeks and I was 8 pounds 9 ounces. So big baby. Same with my sister. It wasn't just me. There was no like gestational diabetes in my mom. My mom just made big babies. My dad was almost 11 pounds at birth, and James was, I believe, almost 10 pounds at birth. So we were huge babies, and I mentioned that to the doctor over and over again. And so at 32 weeks, we got a growth ultrasound, and we figured out that he was already measuring at like 6 pounds 4 ounces at 32 weeks. So they were like, if you go full term, this baby could be like 11, 12 pound baby. So I was like, but I kept saying, like, if my body can make it, if my body wouldn't make a baby that's too big, and my body knows what it's doing, and da-da-da. So then at 36 weeks, so like 2 days before I had him, I had another growth ultrasound, and he was actually measuring at like 7 pounds 4 ounces. So they were like, oh, he just went through like a big growth spurt at 32 weeks. Like he's more on track now. So now if you were to have him, we're thinking like 9 to 10 pounds, like not as crazy as before. So that's just a little backstory. So anyways, I had, in the last week and a half of my pregnancy, I gained like 12 pounds, like shot up. I was all belly. I had really like maintained my weight really well all through the pregnancy. I worked out, and I just like, I was feeling good. And then the last week of the pregnancy, I swelled up. My ankles were huge. I'll insert some pictures. My feet were huge. I gained 12 pounds in a week. So as you can imagine, I was really nervous, because that's a sign of preeclampsia. I just had swelling from like the waist down, like even my thighs were swollen, but I didn't have any in my face or my fingers really. So some people say like, oh, you have to have it in your face and your fingers for preeclampsia. Anyways, I called the doctor. I went to an appointment, and I did have a little protein in my urine, and my blood pressure was high, which is usually a sign of preeclampsia. So they were like, we're going to do blood work and then come back on Monday. So this was Friday. Come back on Monday and get tested again. At this point, I was like almost 36 weeks. So obviously, if you have a preeclampsia, normally they just induce you, because the only cure for it is to be induced and to have the baby. So I went back on Monday, and there was no protein in my urine, and my blood pressure was fine. So they're like, okay, so it's not looking like preeclampsia, or if it is, it's like like it's on its way, but it's not quite there yet. So they're like, come back in another couple days. But I actually didn't even end up getting to come back because I went into labor before then. So I'm just going to kind of give you the layout leading up to when I had him, which was Wednesday morning. On the Saturday before I had him, I had cramping all night long, and it just felt like dull period cramps. I get really intense period cramps when I'm on my period, and these just kind of felt dull. They weren't like, they were bad enough that they kept me up, but I think they kept me up more because I was like, what's happening? And it wasn't like contractions where you can time them. They weren't coming and going. They were just like consistent. I even called the doctor, and she said, like, if you can time them, then come in, but because I wasn't yet 36, or I was 36 weeks on that Saturday or whatever. So me and my doctor, by the way, had two different due dates. I thought I was due August 26th. They thought I was due August 28th. It's because when I first got pregnant, I was in North Carolina, and they gave me a due date of August 26th. And then when I moved to Maryland, they gave me a due date of August 28th, even though I was measuring ahead. They kept saying, oh, your due date from North Carolina, August 28th. So I think there was a typo somewhere from the paperwork from North Carolina, because they kept saying, we're just going off what North Carolina said. Even though you're measuring ahead, we're not going to move it forward because we're going off what North Carolina said. And I'm like, North Carolina said August 26th, like even on my ultrasounds. But anyways, so that Saturday was 36 weeks, and I was just having cramping, and I was super nervous because James had to go to work, and I didn't even know what to do with myself because I was like, what if I'm about to go into labor? He works like 30 minutes from home, and the hospital's like pretty far, so I like didn't know what to do. But thankfully my friend Stephanie was coming into town from North Carolina to visit for Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, so she got there, and the cramps kind of went away, and I forgot about it. So anyways, on Tuesday night, so the night before I had him, this is going to be TMI for some people, but hopefully this is just ladies watching or just, you know, mature adults. So I had wiped, and it was what I assumed was my mucus plug. And not a big chunk like they said, but just a little like stretchy brownish stuff every time I would wipe, which they said is kind of like your mucus plug breaking away. So I remember texting my mom being like, I think I'm losing my mucus plug, but I've also read that it can rebuild itself, and so that doesn't really mean anything, because sometimes it means like you're going to go into labor in like 4 weeks, which would make sense because I was 36 weeks and 2 days. And then also that night, the night before I had him, I kept texting my mom being like, I kind of feel lightheaded, or like I have like fluish symptoms, like my body's kind of achy, and I don't really feel good. And my mom was like, sounds like early signs of labor. And my mom has 4 kids, and that's what she said. And I didn't even know that that's what that could even mean, like flu-like symptoms. So I was like, huh. So I just had a feeling that I was going to go into labor for some reason. Like, I call it mother's intuition. I felt like I was going to. So I took a shower. I shaved my legs. Mind you, James is already sleeping. This is like 10 p.m. at night. We go to bed early. So I'm shaving my legs. I friggin' tweezed my eyebrows. I did like everything. And then all night long, I kept having a dream that I was waking up and walking to the bathroom, and my water would break. And I'd be like, and then like I'd wake up and be like, oh, it's just a dream. Let me go to the bathroom. And then my water would break. And like, you know, like where you keep waking up but it keeps being a dream. So I kept having that dream. So anyways, it's 7 a.m. on Wednesday, and I'm laying in bed, and I'm kind of going in and out of sleep, and then I feel like a twinge. I don't even know if that's a word, but that's like what it felt like almost like a balloon, like someone was like pulling it, and then all of a sudden, like I'm completely laying down, and water's like gushing out of me. And I know they say like most women, your water doesn't break till you're in the hospital. My mom, with all 4 of us, had to have her water broken for her. And so I didn't think like my water was gonna break. I didn't think that was an option. And it was like, so I'm like, James, because he's in the living room because he always wakes up before me. And he was like, yeah. And I was like, I think my water broke. And so then it's like gushing out. I stand up and get off the bed, and it's coming out even more. I'm walking to the bathroom, and water, like so much water. And by the time I get over the toilet and like pull my underwear down, my underwear was like sagging like this, like holding cups of water. So at that point I'm like, well, my water just broke. Like there's no denying it. The whole pregnancy I was kind of nervous. Like, what if my water broke in the shower and I didn't know? Or like, because some people say it's like a little trickle, or no, it was all out. So I called the doctor, and I was like, my water broke. And while on the phone, all of a sudden I started having a contraction. Mind you, this is the first contraction. So right after the water broke, a contraction started. And the doctor's like, from the sound of you having a contraction, I'm just going to say, just come on in. So we are like, oh! Thankfully, I had made a list in my little, let me see if I can find it. I had made a list of everything I wanted to pack for my hospital bag. So I'm running around like throwing stuff in the bag, like not even thinking, and we probably left the house about like 20 minutes later and got to the hospital like an hour later. So in the car ride from the car, so the 40 minutes from my apartment to the hospital, my contractions went from being like 6 minutes apart to like 2 minutes apart. Like I was contracting fast and hard, and it was intense. And I actually was like planning on doing a birth vlog, because when I was pregnant, I watched so many birth vlog videos. Look at, I have like a makeup brush, I don't know what I'm doing. I watched so many birth vlogs. It was like my favorite thing to watch, so I really wanted to film one, and I tried, and this is the only clip I got because my labor was so intense, so I'm gonna insert it now. Okay, so it is Wednesday. What's the date? August 2nd. So that was the only clip I got for the birth vlog that I was trying to do. Let me make sure I'm not skipping anything. So we get to the hospital and we check in with registration, and my contractions, like I said, are like 2.5 minutes apart, and they are intense. Like intense. So by the time we get in the room, they check me and they're like, okay, you're 4 centimeters dilated, and I'm getting all hooked up, and they're like, you're contracting hard and fast. Because I heard when I was pregnant that most women with their first baby, their labor is like 18 to 20 hours long, is what I think I read online. And my contractions were intense. So they were like, let's get you hooked up to fluid. Mind you, I had had my group strep test, but I hadn't had the results yet, so they wanted to give me the antibiotic just in case I had it, to protect the baby. So they're like, let's get you hooked up and let's start doing that. And so they were like, how do you want to labor? And I was trying to sit in the bed and I couldn't handle it, and they were like, okay, there's a shower over there if you want to like strip down and just sit in the shower, like have the hot water on you. That helps a lot of people. So they had like a chair in the shower, and I sat on the shower, and James had like the shower hose like aimed at my lower back, because my pain, I never had any contractions up top. Mine was all like really bad, the lower cramping in my front abdomen. And I can't even explain how painful those contractions were. I cannot even, and seriously, I'm good with pain. I'm not like, and every people were like, are you scared for labor? I would say, like, I don't care how bad the pain is. Like, I can handle pain. I just want it to be like a safe and healthy thing for me and the baby. Like, I can do the pain. I know it's going to hurt. And I was expecting pain, but oh my gosh, the thought of that pain makes me never ever want to have another child. And at first I was like, why is this so painful? Like, everybody does this. And because part of me wanted to do it without epidural, but oh my gosh, like I cannot even explain to you. I was screaming at the top of my lungs, screaming every time I had a contraction. I was whipping my head around like so fast. I don't even want to do it because I'll like mess my hair up, but I was whipping my hair around. At one point, James was standing in front of me and I bit his stomach. And then I was biting his arm, and then I was like banging on the paper towel thing. So mind you, like I'm sitting in the shower like on this little chair, and there's like, you know, the paper towel thing over here, the shower over here, James. I'm like banging on stuff, whipping my head around and screaming all at the same time. And my contractions were like, I mean, like 40 seconds apart. Like I did not get a break. And I later found out that I had like the most intense contractions, like I wasn't being a baby, because within an hour, within 2 hours of my water breaking, I was fully dilated to a 10. So I went from a 4 to a 10 within like 40 minutes. And those were like the worst 40 minutes ever. At one point, James was like, you keep biting me. Do you want me to, here, let's do a paper towel. So he got like a paper towel and he got it all wet. And he's like, put it back in your teeth and bite down on it. And I remember I had it in my mouth and a contraction came and I ripped it out of my mouth. And he tried to put it back in my mouth because he thought it was a mistake. And I was like, no, and I like threw the paper towel across. Like, you guys, it was so bad. Okay, so we're gonna move on, but I just wanted you guys to understand the extent of how bad those contractions were. If you've had kids, I'm sure you understand. I don't know. Props to you if you do that naturally. There's no way I could. I seriously wish, I know this is like a weird wish, but I really wish I'd had like a standard labor where it was like 18 hours and I walked the hall and I was stuck at a 4 centimeters for a while. Because I had prepped my bag and had that kind of labor in my head the whole time. Like, you know, we're gonna walk the halls, and I had brought like an oil diffuser with me and coconut oil so James could massage my back, and I had brought like slippers and a robe. Like, I was ready. But I mean, I got to the hospital, they checked me, I went in the bathroom, I screamed my head off for 40 minutes, and then I was 10 centimeters dilated. So at one point they were like, you're dilating too fast, we're not gonna have time for an epidural. And I'm like, no, like, I need an epidural. And I could see, oh sorry, they're like, we can't get you an epidural until you have all the fluid in you. Like, you have to get through this bag of fluid. So I noticed, because the IV was right here, and I think you can kind of still see but I noticed when I did like a certain movement, like I went like this, the water would drip faster. So imagine how crazy I looked. I'm sitting in the bathroom screaming, and then in my like 30-40 second breaks in between contractions, I'm going like this, watching the dripper, trying to get liquid into me faster. Like, I was like a lunatic. And then, let's see. So then I was 10 centimeters dilated, and they're like, okay, let's get the epidural in you. I don't even remember signing for the epidural. I do remember when he wanted me to sign, I started having a contraction. I started screaming, and I threw the pen down, and I was like, sign it, sign it, sign it. So James ended up reading it, and I just scribbled some kind of signature and got the epidural, and it was heaven. The epidural is absolute heaven. I know sometimes it has bad side effects, or it doesn't work fully for people. For me, it numbed me, and I was perfect. So I loved the epidural. So then I started pushing, and I pushed for 3 hours. So I pushed a long time. And like I said, I had worked out the whole pregnancy, and I had been doing squats, and I had been reading like how to be like a good pusher and stuff. And so they kept saying like, wow, you have really good pushes. Like, you know how you push for 10 seconds, then you breathe, and then you go back in and you push for 10 seconds, then you breathe, and then, like, you know, you do that when you have contractions. So I would do that like 4 or 5 different times, and they were like, gosh, your endurance is really good. Are you tired yet? I'm like, no, I'm good. Like, I was giving it my all, because at that point I'm like, get this baby out. And nothing happened for 3 hours. And finally, if you're not religious, sorry, but I have something that I have to say. So I was pushing for 3 hours, and then there was a point in my head where I was praying, and I was like, God, please get this baby out. Please, when I push, I hope he comes out. Let him come out right now, please. And then I thought about it, and I'm like, what if he gets stuck? Or what if that's not what's healthiest? What if the cord dropped on him? What if there's a reason he's not coming out? So then I stopped, and I'm like thinking, and mind you, I'm like pushing during this, but this is just like your thoughts while you're pushing after you've been pushing for 3 hours. So then I said, God, never mind. Whatever is best, whatever's meant to happen and is safest for me and for William, I want to do that. If it's a C-section, then I'm ready. You just need to let me know and give me a sign. So I push, and then I stop, and the doctor goes, honey, I think it's time for a C-section. I'm getting chills right now. I'm gonna cry. I don't know, it's crazy to me. Don't be weird. But isn't that like crazy? Like, I was praying, and I was like, give me a sign, God, if I need to have a C-section for this to be safe, and like, I trust you. And then I literally sit up, and she said, honey, I'm sorry, but I think we're gonna have to do a C-section. She's like, he's not gonna fit. And I looked at her, and I was like, and I told her like later that I had prayed about it, and I was like, okay, let's do that then. Which, so yeah, that's like insane to me. Sorry I keep like fixing my hair. It's like I think it's like a nervous thing, and then I keep like looking at myself. But so yeah, so we got a C-section. So my pelvic bone, I guess, is too small for pretty much any baby head to fit out of. She kept going up there, and she's like, not only is he facing the wrong way, because instead of his head, the pelvic bone being here, it was going like this, but she was like, there's no way. She kept going up there and being like, he's not gonna fit through that hole. So we decided to go in for a C-section, and that was really scary, because once they announced it's C-section time, people start running in the room, and I'm like a really anxious individual, so it definitely made me nervous, and they're like unscrewing, like I had this piercing the tragus, and she like unscrewed it, and like it was just really fast. Let me make sure I'm not forgetting anything. So then we get wheeled in, and here's me like trying to crack humor the whole time. So we like get near this elevator. I'm like, are we going in that elevator? Because I'm terrified of elevators. And they're like, no. I was like, okay, because I was gonna say, never mind on the C-section, I'm not getting in an elevator. So I was like trying to crack jokes to make myself feel better. So anyways, we get in the C-section room, in the operating room, and it's so bright, and it was so scary. Like, and I know so many people have C-sections, and so this whole story might not even be dramatic to some people, but I'm like really an anxious person, and this whole thing just scared me. I was already kind of scared of labor as it is. So they strap your arms down. So they make you numb from like here down, because obviously they don't want to feel your stomach. And then your arms are strapped down, and you're laying on a board. I don't know why they strap your arms down. I'm sure there's like good reason, but your arms are strapped down. And James couldn't be in the room yet. They had to make sure like everything was set up before he came in the room. So I'm sitting there by myself, like, and I'm already, you guys, I'm going to make myself seem like a nut job, because I'm telling you I'm like scared of elevators and scared of this and scared of that, but I'm like extremely claustrophobic, and I think with that, being numb is something that freaks me out. Like, it's more so a control thing. Like, I want to be able to move if I can. So not being able to feel from here down, I started getting really panicky, and the epidural didn't do that. People, maybe it was just my epidural, but my epidural was great. Like, I was numb, but I could still feel things. But anyways, I like started freaking out. But they have this nurse by you that's like, I'm here to just sit by you and let you know that you have someone here if you need anything, and da da da. She's like, so tell me what you need. Tell me what you need. And I'm like, I need you to talk to me. And she's like, okay. And I'm like, I'm someone that when I get nervous, I just need someone to talk to me. Like, if I sit here, I'm just going to start panicking. So she was like, what do you want to talk about? So I'm like, your eyes are really pretty. Do you have any kids? How old are they? Like, I'm just asking random questions. And so then we get the C-section, and I, at one point, started having, like, while they're cutting open, I'm going, I need to crack my toes. Someone needs to crack my toes. I can't feel my toes. I need to crack my toes. Because I felt like my toes needed to be cracked for some reason. And I kept saying, I'm trying to crack them, and it's itching. And she was like, honey, your toes aren't even moving. But I could feel them moving. And so it's funny, because the whole time I'm getting, like, cut open in my midsection, I'm, like, freaking out, yelling at people below the blue thing, like, can you crack my toes? So that's what, like, I was panicking about. I think that was, like, my way of, like, not realizing what was going on. I'm like, I'm gonna focus on those toes. So the C-section, though, was, like, over 2 hours long. And I didn't know that anything was, like, wrong until later, but I guess he was really stuck. And he wasn't stuck in the pelvic bone, even though later they said that there was no way a baby would have fit through my pelvic opening. So pretty much I don't have any chance of not having a C-section if I have any babies in the future, because they were like, there's no way. But he was like stuck. So they were like, because he's 3.5 weeks early, and he was 8 pounds 6 ounces when he was born. But they were like, you know, this baby would not have fit in here another day. That's why your water broke. Like, your body knew. But I guess he was like really stuck inside of me. They were like moving things and pulling him out, and just like really struggling at getting him out of me without like causing issues. And I didn't know that. And thank goodness, I mean, everybody at this hospital, the nurses and the doctors, were phenomenal. But it was a really, really long C-section of me just sitting there terrified and panicked. But he did come out, and he came out crying, and they placed him on my chest. I think I was so numb, though, that it's sad, but I think I was on so many drugs at that point from trying to have a vaginal birth and then having a C-section that I didn't feel like a lot of emotion, which kind of made me sad, because I wasn't like, I feel like I missed out on that every mom gets, where they like hold their baby the first time and they have this like love for them. And you know, I felt that for him when he was in my stomach, and like I loved him so much. And then I feel like that now, but when he came out, I just was like numb. So they placed him on my chest for like, and I can't touch him because I'm like this, for like 5 seconds, if that, because he's technically considered a preemie, so they have to whisk him away. So he leaves the room, and James is like, do you want me to stay or go? And I'm like, go with him. So what happened next, so they're in the hallway, and of course I didn't find out about this till later. They're in the hallway taking him back to the nursery, and he stops breathing. And mind you, they have him in one of those carts. So they get him to an oxygen machine, and the oxygen machine will not turn on. So nurses and the doctor or whoever is pressing buttons, and James said they were like unplugging valves and replugging them in, and like, you know, flipping things on and off. And William is turning blue, and no one can get the oxygen machine on. So that was really traumatic for James, and James had to go through that. So I feel bad for him, like having to see that. And I could tell something was wrong when I saw him again when I was in the recovery room, but he wouldn't tell me what was wrong. He kept being like, I'm fine, it's just overwhelming. And I was like, something's wrong. But thankfully the machine did turn on, and they got him hooked up, and he had on an oxygen machine. I'll insert tons of pictures. So he had oxygen on his nose. He also had like a tube down his throat, I guess to suck air out of his stomach, is what I was under the impression. And then like all these things, I'll post a picture. So he was in the Nicu, so I didn't get to hold him or anything. I had to go to the recovery room, and I was in there for like an hour, and there they just like check your vitals, and they push on your stomach to try to make your uterus shrink down, or make sure your uterus is shrinking down. It hurts so bad. And then they gave me like a little sponge bath, I guess, to get all the blood off of me because I was just cut open and everything. And then after that, we went into the NICU, and I got to like hold his little hand, and like I said, I'll insert a picture. But I didn't get to hold him yet, so I just felt really disconnected from him. I didn't feel like he was my baby. I felt like my baby was still inside of me, and it kind of made me sad because I still to this moment really, really wish I could have delivered vaginally, especially when I see friends like post pictures on Instagram or Facebook, and they are like holding their baby, and I can tell they just gave birth vaginally, and they have, I don't know, like I wanted to like experience that. I wanted James to experience that. I wanted to do the skin to skin, and to see my baby right after, and to create that like instant bond. And like now, like I love my son more than anything in the whole entire world. Like sometimes I look at him and I want to cry. I love him so much, and I know he loves me in the way he looks at me, but it's like I feel like I missed out on something. So anyways, just to round up, we were in the hospital for a week after having him, and the week after labor was horrible too. It was just rough. He was in the NICU, he had the oxygen problems, and he had jaundice, which isn't that big of a deal, but I couldn't hold him a lot because he had to be under the blue lights, so once again, I couldn't hold him. I didn't get to hold him for the first time until like he was almost like a day old, and it was only for a little bit, and I didn't get to hold him that much in the hospital because he was under those lights. So I just felt like I didn't get that bonding time, and I wanted James to do skin to skin. I wanted to do skin to skin. None of that happened in the hospital. And then at one point, I thought we were going to go home, and we weren't going to go home because he was having problems regulating his temperature. So they wanted him to be like between a 97.5 and a 98.8 or something, and he was at like a 97.3. He couldn't quite get it high enough. So they told me that we had to stay another day, and I started crying, but I was like, no, I want to do whatever's best for him, but it's just hard to hear. And then we had to stay an additional 2 days because they wanted to test him for some kind of virus, because once again they weren't sure if I had that group B strep thing, if that had came back positive or not. So they had to test him for that, and the results took 48 hours, and we had to stay in the hospital. So I was only in the hospital for 4 days, and then I was discharged, and then he got his own room, and then we switched to his room, and we got to be with him in his room for like 3 days. So we were in the hospital for a week, but I was only like a patient for 4 of those days, and then he was like the patient only. But anyways, so backtracking, after I gave birth, like a couple days later, my blood pressure was, after I gave birth, I was so swollen. My thighs, my knees, my legs, it looked like a different body. My mom now, she didn't tell me in the moment, but now she was like, yeah, she's like, yeah, it really scared me. Like I went home and called my friend and asked her like for like what I could do to help, if there was anything to do, because she had a friend who does lymphatic massages, and so she tried doing that on me. Like I guess it freaked my mom out, and it was really scary. I was huge. And then my blood pressure was through the roof, so high, and they kept taking it, and it kept being higher and higher, and then they started taking my heart rate, and my heart rate was dropping, and it was really low. It was like 40, And so then at that point, like, the nurse started panicking, which started making me panic because my blood pressure was through the roof, my heart rate was really low, and in my mind, I'm thinking my heart's like, because that's what I'm feeling, but apparently it was like, like, it was so slow. So they put me on blood pressure medicine, and I feel like telling the story now back, it's like, could be like, oh, it wasn't that traumatic, but like in my mind, like every time I think about it, like it was such a traumatic experience that whole week, just like with the labor and the pains I wasn't expecting, and then going into the C-section, and then the baby being stuck, and then the baby not breathing, and then being in the NICU, and then my blood pressure being high, and then my heart rate dropping. Like, it was just a really scary experience. And there was like a few times where like I almost passed out when I would try to go to the NICU, and they'd be like, you have to stand and get to the wheelchair. You just stand and get to the wheelchair, and then we'll wheel you. And if I couldn't make it to the wheelchair, I couldn't go. And there was a few times I couldn't go because I'd get too dizzy. And so then they're scared of like blood clots. And the whole thing was just so scary. I know like women go through it every day. Maybe I'm a baby, but it was so scary. And so that was pretty much it. That was like my birth story. And like I said, like the thought of having kids now, like I don't know if I want any more. I couldn't imagine, one, going through those contractions again. That was ridiculous. And I know I sound like a baby, but the doctor told me that they were really intense contractions. And then two, I don't ever want to do a C-section again, which I know is my only option, because that was so freaking scary. And then the fact that the baby was stuck and the C-section was like complicated and they had trouble with getting him out, like that scares me. And then like remembering the fact that he was in the NICU and not being able, I don't know, like the whole thing just kind of like, that was not a good week. And sometimes when I think about it, I get sad because it's like people say like, oh, the best day of my life was the day my son was born. Like, I don't feel like that. And like, I love him so much, and I could not imagine life without him. I love him more than anything in the whole world, but I would not relive that week ever again. In the moment, it was the scariest, most stressful week of my whole entire life. It was so scary. I think like the day I had him, and then the like 3 or 4 days after, where I was having blood pressure and heart rate problems and things like that, and then they were scared if I was having a blood clot, and they kept being like, does this hurt, like trying to figure out what's wrong with me. Though it was just so scary, I would never want to relive it, and that kind of makes me sad that I can't be like, oh, that was the happiest day of my life, because it wasn't. It definitely wasn't. It was probably one of the worst, to be honest, except for the fact that I got him out of it. And I know women have way worse experiences and go through way worse stuff, but that's what makes me not want to have another kid, because it's like, I don't want the next one to be even worse. And I know it's worth it, but I don't know, it just really scared me. So this was my birth story. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope I didn't scare anybody, but I really wanted to just like, you know, say it. And when I was pregnant, I watched a bunch of these birth stories, and some were good and some were bad, and you kind of just hope for the best. And, you know, I can just be thankful that I'm healthy and my baby's healthy, even though it was kind of a rocky week to get us there, that everything is great, and he's been great since he got discharged from the hospital. If any of you are pregnant, I have you in my thoughts and prayers, that you have a safe and healthy labor and delivery. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Before you leave, please make sure you're subscribed. I am like a psycho checker. I have subscribers sent to my email, and anytime someone subscribes and I get an email notification, it like makes my whole day. I get so excited. So if you would subscribe, that would mean a lot. Give it a thumbs up and leave a comment down below. And thank you once again so much for watching, and I hope you guys have a great day.